Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be our next video on tree identification, and specifically going through and understanding what a species is in order to go through and identify species of trees. Let's get started on this next video. So if we were to go through and take a walk in the woods, in North America or anywhere around the world, what we would see are trees of various different shapes and sizes. We would see trees that have needles, trees that have leaves, trees that have large and numerous amounts of leaves, and trees that have small amounts of leaves. There are very tall trees, there are also very small trees, and there are trees that can go through and live in different environments. So what we're really going through and looking at is how we can go through and classify those trees in order to understand all the different types of organisms that will interact with that tree and its environment. But before we go through and look at different types of trees, let's go through and look at these two bugs here and ask the question: are these bugs the same species? Well, a species is defined as a group of individuals that actually or potentially interbreed in nature. And in this sense, a species is the biggest gene pool possible under natural conditions. So the question here is, are they the same species? And there are two things that we have to go through and ask in order to go through and define them as the same species. Are they capable of interbreeding? And two, do they produce fertile offspring in nature? Now, these beetles may look very similar, but if they are not capable of doing these two things, they are not of the same species. And if we look at all sorts of different trees out in the environment, they are not of the same species, and they may look different because of years and years of evolution, but they are not of the same species because they are not capable of interbreeding and they are not capable of producing fertile offspring. So what I want to do right now is tell a story of fruit flies here. So there are a wild population of fruit flies that are minding their own business on several bunches of rotting bananas. They cheerfully lay their eggs in this mushy fruit here. So we can see these flies and the coloration of these fruit flies here. They all have this kind of grayish dark color here. And they're going through and laying their eggs in that banana. Now, a disaster is going to go through and strike, and this banana is going to be moved to a brand new environment. So if we go through and look at this, a hurricane washes the bananas and the immature fruit flies they contain out to sea. The banana bunch eventually washes up on the island off the coast of the mainland. The fruit flies mature, and they emerge from their slimy nursery onto the lonely island. The two portions of the population, mainland and island, are now too far apart for gene flow to unite them. And at this point, speciation has not occurred. Any of the fruit flies that got back to the mainland in some possible way could mate and produce healthy offspring with the mainland flies. Now, over time, what we're going to see is this population divergence as these organisms go through, mate, and evolve in their very specific environments. And over time, we're going to see a physiological and morphological change in these two organisms. Ecological conditions are slightly different on the island, and the island population evolves under different selected pressures and experiences, different random events that the mainland population does and does not have. So morphology, food preferences, and courtship displays change over the course of many generations of natural selection. Now, once these organisms then go through, let's say another banana goes through and washes up these fruit flies, and generations of these newly evolved fruit flies come in contact with a generation of old fruit flies here, what we're going to see is two separate species of these flies. In this case, we're looking at fruit flies, but this same thing can go through and occur with trees. So in this story, when another storm reintroduces the island flies to the mainland, they will not readily mate with the mainland flies since they've evolved different courtship behaviors. The few that do mate with the mainland flies produce inviable eggs because of the other genetic differences between the two populations. The lineage splits and the genes cannot flow between the two populations. So when we're going through and looking at this, what we can do with trees is we can map out how related they are based on what we call a phylogenetic tree. And if we look at a phylogenetic tree, it's going to show from past to present. And this specific phylogenetic tree is going to show all of the different organisms that exist on Earth. Bacteria, archaea, protists, we see plants, we're then going to see fungi, and then we see the animal kingdom here. And then we can also go through and represent organisms that are no longer alive, such as dinosaurs. But we can see different species of trees and map different species of trees based on speciation events that have occurred amongst these organisms. And again, this phylogenetic tree is just showing from the first cell to all the different animal kingdoms. We can get very specific with our phylogenetic trees for the plant organisms that we're going to go through and study. And remember, a phylogenetic tree shows the evolutionary interactions among groups with evidence to go through and support this tree. Alright, so did you guys learn? Well, did you learn a couple of things? Did you guys go through and learn about what a species is at its basic level? Did you guys look at an example of how speciation can occur? And I want you guys to think about how this can occur with trees. And lastly, what is a phylogenetic tree? Do we understand what a phylogenetic tree is? This is going to be the end of the video. I will see you all in class tomorrow.